my camera. How about them Giants? How about them Giants? How about them Giants?
Giants fans, what is going on? And welcome to another episode of Draft Talk. Unfortunately, Truth tonight is on injured reserve. Chris was our special guest, even though he was part of the crew, but it's just going to be me and him tonight. And we're talking about one of the most important positions out there on the field. In my view, the second most important position on the defensive side of the ball. It's the cornerback position, right? Lots to talk about. A lot of dudes that rose and fell. We're also going to talk about, how it applies to the Giants in terms of their cornerback needs. What you can expect the Giants to do and, everything along those lines. And then, of course, Travis Hunter is going to be the top candidate that we go over. When we go over him, we got to discuss, how he really ranks to cornerback, not just compared to this year's group of guys, but also in previous years. I don't know if you know it, Giants fans, but right now the DraftKings is indicating the most likely player to be selected by the New York Giants is not Shedeur Sanders. It's actually Travis Hunter, which would be quite relevating. This is not the first time we have gone over Travis Hunter this year. We went over him with the wide receiver show. Important question at the end of that one was he the best wide receiver of that group? Travis Hunter, in my view, is the best wide receiver, but is he the best cornerback? This is the kind of stuff that we have to get into because if we get him at the third pick, we got to discuss where that dude's going to play and, what it's going to translate to when he gets to the Giants. But first and foremost, let's bring him in. Chris, what is going on?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah, of course. You did a lot of homework and, we got a good amount of players that we're going over. I think it's 15 total, and it always goes back to one of these things. This is a position you can always expect the Giants to get in the mid rounds, even if they don't go with one of the top cornerbacks, right? Because if it's just Will Johnson, I don't see us doing it. But like I said, Travis Hunter's looking actually like the possible likely guy the Giants get.
Yeah, and Mike, when you get past the Debo, Paulson, and Deontay Banks, you're looking at some depth issues when you get further down the line with a guy like Art Green. And then, you have Trey Hawkins, who came back and flashed last year towards the end of the season. And then you're looking at, a guy like, here we go. Hang on, give me a second here. I'm just going through the depth chart here. Art Green, Trey Hawkins, we said. And then on the other side, after Banks, you have Cordell Flott, who actually played a little bit better at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then you have a guy like Nick Jones, who came over from San Francisco, more or less maybe a special teamer, not going to be a guy that may even make the team. So really, in terms of depth, what you said, Mike, I think those mid-round to late-round picks could be a cornerback in there if the Giants don't go the way of Travis Hunter and he's not going to be a corner. So I think it all, goes off of that, obviously.
And again, we have 5 top 100 picks, right? So that does make a difference here as to whether or not we get one. So, and the thing that makes this a little bit tough with cornerbacks is, when you start getting even the top guys, the question is, are they more man? Are they more coverage? We deal with that with Deontay Banks, right? It's like he's more of a man coverage guy. And he's playing a little bit too much zone. Mm-hmm. These things come up and, you obviously want your cornerbacks to be the least system-dependent cornerbacks there are. You want them to be good at both because it's a struggle. And let me just say, this is the one thing that makes this position tough is statistically, this is one of the biggest fall-offs in terms of how many good starters actually come from mid-rounds. There's not that many. It's statistically not that great. If you look back at the top corners in the NFL, currently in the NFL, the majority of them were picked not just top, in the first round, but actually top 10. So we got Deontay Banks at pick 25. Unfortunately, it's very common for cornerbacks picked at that position to bust out around that marker. So, lots of things could happen. I don't want to take that away because there's some cornerbacks on this list that I really do think could be great players for the Giants. And of course, we get Travis Hunter. It's a we're talking a little bit more game changer, but let's get right into it, and we can start from the back because, like you said, the Giants could probably use a little bit more upgrading, especially in the depth. I think they did a good job solidifying the cornerback room and really the D-backs as a whole, the Debo and whatnot. But let's start right at the top. Noel Williams out of California. Chris, what do you have on this guy?
Yeah, interesting guy. And this could be a guy that could be targeted maybe in that 5th round for the Giants if they need a corner. At 6'1", 200 pounds, runs a 4.5 40. But what you like about a mid-round pick as a corner is the guy plays special teams. You don't find a lot of the college guys getting drafted at corner that play special teams because a lot of them are starters and they're not playing special teams. And college rosters carry 100 guys, so they're filling in those special players with other guys. So this guy actually plays special teams, which could be a benefit of him, being drafted. He led the nation with 7 interceptions at Cal. Interesting part, 3 touchdowns, 1 for an interception, 1 as a fumble return, and another one on a kickoff return. So he can, play a little kickoff as well. So very multifaceted. But when you look at him, he's very good in press. He jams well off the line, plays the ball well off of the receiver and contested catches. And once again, the special teams is a big thing for him in the coverage units and also as a returner. Some negatives. He's slow flipping the hips. His back pedal is lacking a little bit. His recovery speed, probably more of a zone guy. You'll see him probably not as a man, but you'll want him in sub packages, maybe in that cover 3 zone. Inconsistent with tackling. Tackling, I want to say, is an issue with him, but he is inconsistent. He'll make some
good. He'll fit right into the Giants.
He'll fit right in. So you get some fantastic, tackles from him and good squaring up. But then you'll see him over aggressive at times and kind of swing and miss on tackles as well. But all in all, I think the projection's right, round 5. But you're going to get a special teamer. You're going to get a guy that's going to play more of a zone sub package, and he's a ball hawk. Plays well off the ball and in ball high points the ball. But I like the fact he had 7 interceptions this past season. So definitely a guy almost reminds me of a Dane Belton at cornerback, always around the ball.
Yeah, and you bring up some of those negatives. Like the biggest one for me with cornerbacks a lot of times is that ability to have that twitchy hip motion, like that. The ability, because you got to do it better than the wide receivers. You're going backwards. And so when they don't really quite have that skill set, it does make me concerned. But like you said, he goes out there and he just balls out for the most part, especially with the interceptions. That could be really valuable to a team. The question will, of course, be, are those interceptions due to just being in the right place at the right time, or is it truly this dude is finding ways to get balls that are extremely challenging? But that's the kind of stuff. I'm sure it helps the draft stock, no doubt.
Yeah, he could be your 5th guy on the depth chart at corner. And you know what? He can be in there on those dime and nickel packages and, once again, contribute on special teams.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to the next dude then. So Kobe Bryant out of Kansas. Now, the name is obviously a little bit catches your eye real quick, right? Spelled differently, but you say Kobe Bryant. But you told me behind the scenes his nickname was Mamba, right?
Yeah, Mamba. So even in some of the highlights and some of the stuff from the Kansas broadcast, they refer to him as the Mamba when he's had interceptions or made good plays. Yeah, so pretty funny there. But so at 6'1", 175, kind of reminds me a little bit of a shorter Cordell Flott. Doesn't have a lot of weight behind him, smaller frame, which concerns you in the running game, going up against on the edge, taking on blockers. Projection, round 5, runs a 4.5 40. Very good ball skills, elite ball skills. Had 13 career interceptions in college, 22 breakups. Very good instinct. Plays with aggressiveness off the edge. Doesn't mind tackling either. He'll come up and make the tackle. Closes on the ball well. Good size. Despite his size, he presses well in coverage as well. Tracks the ball well. Fights through blocks. We talked about his hips. Fluid through his hips. Probably would be more with his size of a zone. More of a zone than a man player, but also again, special teams he played quite a bit. So you're going to see special teams as a benefit for him to make a team once he's drafted, and he's going to be another guy similar to Williams, where you might see him more in the sub packages in the cover 3 zone. Dime packages, just because based on size, he gets, even though he fights through some blocks well, he is undersized when he takes on the bigger blockers. Durability is an issue, right? At 175, sometimes overly aggressive, can be grabby downfield and man. So that's another reason why you might see him more in zone. He can get boxed out a little bit because of his size. Bigger target receivers can box him out. Because of his lack of size, he's been known, or he's seen when you watch the tape, guys have broken through tackles from him because of his lighter frame. So he probably should shore up and square up on his tackling maybe a little bit better, because you do see guys breaking tackles on him, especially at the next level at 175 pounds. Tackling would probably need to improve.
Funny that you always see like the one or the other, right? You got the twitchy, that twitch ability, but a lot of those guys that have that quick speed are lousy tacklers. And that's unfortunately this guy's case, right? So it's something he's got to work on, something he's got to be willing to do. Because if you're a poor tackler, I mean, it's just going to have negative effects on the rest of the defense as a whole. You're going to give up a lot of yards. Screen plays can be disasters. So, you hate to hear it for the guy. But again, I mean, he does do certain things well. So we'll see how this guy does.
Yeah, more of like, very good ball skills. So, yeah, he could be a round 5 guy to keep an eye on for the Giants.
All right. What about Jacob Parrish out of Cincinnati? What do you got?
Yep, it's actually Kansas State, too, so they might have been an error on that. So, out of Kansas State.
He played Kansas State his last year.
Oh, he did? Okay, so
no, Cincinnati his last year.
It was Cincinnati this past. Oh, were you sure it wasn't 2024, Kansas State?
One sec.
Yeah, double check that. I thought I had. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's a different world out there nowadays. Yeah, he went to Kansas State.
In this past year?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So, all right, so that is correct. 2024 Kansas State. So 5'10", 190. Once again, not an overly big guy. He's a little on the smaller side in terms of some weight. Actually, I wouldn't even say he's small. Just 5'10", 190. He's probably more of a you'd see more of like a slot, right, at that height and weight, maybe, because he doesn't have the he has aggressive style of play, uses hands well. He had about 50 tackles in 2024. The thing, he runs a 4.35 40, projected to get drafted in round 4. Disciplined with leverage, closes well, breaking on the ball, transitions. We talked about the back pedal, flipping hips, very good with that. Instinctive with an anticipation, willingness to tackle. So he sticks his head in there. Baits the quarterback well in zone. He's been targeted more of a zone player despite the speed at 4.35. He'll take on big blockers. He's fearless. Smaller frame. Has a tendency to overcommit, too aggressive at times. His eyes get caught in the backfield.
Well, especially with the quarterback reads. I don't know if you watched any of that clip, but when I actually watched him, it's like the quarterbacks can fake him out very easily.
Yeah, and maybe that's another reason why they project him more in like a zone coverage than a man. Physical blocker. He gets sold on the initial moves off the line by the receivers, so that's like something that he needs to probably work on. Probably you could see him maybe as a nickel as well. He's, because of his shiftiness and his height and weight, probably better against the shiftier, undersized receivers than the 6'3", 6'4" type receivers. He kind of projects me more as a man press corner, but maybe even from the nickel spot. Because he's better with the shiftier guys than the big guys, because he gets a little bit the frame. He gets a little bit boxed out.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see about that, right? And so we get to like how it applies to the Giants. I mean, when it comes to the nickel, when it comes to the slot, like the corners and whatnot, all these guys, you of course try to avoid drafting by need, but with cornerback it gets a little bit challenging because it does have to be a fit within where our needs are and what our system enables them to do, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, would the Giants go for a guy like that, given that he's a nickel corner? I don't know.
Well, they put him at. He's good in zone, but I think if you had to put him at nickel, that might be the option. As your fourth, or I would say maybe your fourth, or maybe your fifth option, or fourth option at the corner spot, maybe at the depth chart eventually after a year with development. But I think off the bat, you're probably looking at him more as like the fifth guy on your depth chart, contributing on special teams, because he has special teams value. Didn't mention that. He played a lot of special teams at Kansas State as well. And with his 4.35 speed, I wouldn't be surprised seeing him as a gunner at the next level too. Because, I mean, most of these guys that when you're talking fourth or fifth, they're going to have to contribute on special teams.
You're right. That's just the reality. Like, we're talking about these dudes, and a lot of them are going to end up kind of being that role.
Yeah,
right?
You can't carry a corner at your fifth spot and he's not playing specials. It just doesn't make sense. It's not worth it at that point.
Only one I can remember, like Josh Norman was a 5th-round pick, but again, this is an extremely rare position that has guys that ball out from the mid rounds. It's very, very rare.
Yeah, when
It's
you talk
like,
about Josh Norman, good length, right? Not maybe the overwhelming speed, but
right,
physical and good length in the arms.
100%.
Yeah.
Dorian Strong is another guy that I'm interested to go over because he actually does a pretty good job at both zone and man. But the one thing I have noted here, it's kind of similar to the to to Parrish in a way, and it's that he's almost too aggressive when he tries to attack.
You nailed it.
But
Can
what'd
be
you have? Yeah, what'd you have on him?
Yeah, let's go. Some of the negatives can be grabby and too aggressive on the deep balls. He doesn't have that recovery speed. He will grab and be handsy. Gambles too much on the underneath routes. Doesn't get his head around. We always complain about the cornerbacks that are kind of pushing through the ball when the ball's, the receivers, when they're up for the contested catch, they're not turning their head. He doesn't really turn his head. He's kind of pushing through, punching through the ball and not getting his head around for a possible turnover, interception. So that's one of the things you notice with him. Projected to go in round 5, runs a 4.5 40. Some of the good stuff. Good cover skills, very good cover skills. He's more of a press man. He does really well. Fluid with his hips, and that's a big reason why. And man, he does well. Flexibility with his hips. That was one of the scouting reports on him. Very good ball skills. Forces incompletions on contested catches. Changes direction well, and will contribute. This is the story on him. Will contribute on special teams right away. He's played special teams at Virginia Tech right from the start. So once again, another guy that may be projected for the 5th round, but would come in right away and contribute on special teams.
And this becomes the thing, like, man, we got more of like an ace than at special teams, right? He's got the experience. They were comfortable putting him there. Special teams, I mean, for the most part, it's like, it is what it is. Just don't mess up. But when you have like an ace on special teams like that, it does always make things very exciting. Like the Bills had that dude in the 90s, right? He was like their Scott something or other. I forget what it is. And the Patriots had one for a long time, the last 15 years. So,
Klesko. Was it Klesko for the Bills? We're talking about Klesko?
That might be it.
Yeah.
That might be it.
And we know the Giants, have had their, Raina Thompsons and those guys.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, special teams. It's always a weird history with the Giants. When we're good, like they suck.
Yep.
When we suck, it's like they're fine. I mean, they're not, not great, but they don't cause for alarm. But all of our miracles and mishaps, infamous miracles, seem to happen when we with special teams during our heydays. So
yeah,
what we really need is better worse special teams. It's the only way we're going to get good again.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, Mike, the more I look at this list for these later round guys, I see a lot of special teams contributions from them at the college level. I wouldn't be surprised in that 5th or 6th round, the Giants do get one of the guys we're talking about, just specifically for a developmental role and getting them right in special teams. And it could be your 5th or 6th corner. And looking at the depth, I mean, like I said, we're talking about guys like Art Green, this other Nick Johnson, guys that are really, when you get further down the depth chart, they may not even be on the team. So I see probably one of these guys could possibly be, on the Giants at some point.
I wouldn't mind if the Giants used their 2nd round pick on one of these guys if they felt like they got an elite cornerback.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. So there's been an Ohio State player on virtually every list that we talked about for the top players. Defense has been no different. So Denzel Burke, I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so watching him and looking at some of the reports on him and watching some of the tapes, 6'1", 193 pounds, good size. Once again, a projection at round 4, runs a 4.48 40. Very good in press coverage. That's his bread and butter. He loves getting up in your face and playing press. Great use of hands. Disrupts routes. Likes to use the boundary as another defender and get you moving sideways. Very good footwork. He's also good in zone coverage as well, but he really excels in that in press man. But he does well in zone too. So all around, he looks like he plays both pretty well. Special team standout with size and speed. So with the 6'1", 193, the story on him, once again, is that at the next level, he may be that developmental guy that's not ready to start, but will contribute right away in special teams just because of his aggressiveness and his size. At 6'1", 190, talking special teams right off the bat.
That's a good frame for a cornerback. My God.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the negatives gets caught flat-footed too much in man coverage, gambles way too much, and we see a lot of this with a lot of these corners in the draft, especially later on. They anticipate a little too much for the big play, and then they get burned. Little tight in the hips, does not change direction well, grabby downfield, tends to panic and not trust his recovery speed. So he's had only 4 interceptions in 35 starts, so not much on the turnover end. The story on him is technique. Technique needs a lot to improve. I don't know if he'll ever even be a starter, but in terms of his special teams ability, that could keep him in the league and keep him as like that 5th cornerback, and once again, in those dime situations when you have, 4 or 5 DBs on the field.
All right, moving on. This is another school that, has been actually doing a pretty good job of producing talent, even though you might not see it on the field. But it has been interesting how many Iowa State guys that we've gone over in the past few years. Darian Porter with a dude like this. What do you think? And I think he had to play Travis Hunter when he was in college. But what do you have on his game?
Very explosive. Projected round 3, runs a 4.340, 6'2", 200 pounds. So good size, very good size, lengthy, great speed, explosive, natural ball tracking ability. It works great leverage on the outside. Plays special teams. He blocked 4 kicks in his career. So between punts and kick,
that can do that at the NFL, I want him, man.
I'm telling you. So right off the bat, even if you have your starters, on the field, this guy will contribute right away on special teams. But he may be the next one in. He may be one of the next guys off the bench to get playing time at back of your ones. Processes well. We don't talk about that a lot. He processes well and understands the concepts and the routes. Good instincts in zone. Uses his big frame. Once again, another cornerback that uses his frame to reroute these receivers. Exceptional makeup speed. Trusts his makeup speed. He has great acceleration. So this all tells me that he is a guy that will play pretty well with his size, 6'2", on the outside, and especially on those go routes, he can recover. Some of the limitations. Shifty receivers, right? We see that sometimes with the taller guys. They're not as good with the shiftier receivers. So I don't think he's ever projected to be a nickel. You're going to see him more or less on the boundary. Needs improvement in tackling, right? Tackling in space seems to be something he needs to work on. Interesting fact, he's 25 years old when he will be a rookie this year in the NFL. So if you're thinking about developmenting him into a starter, he may not start till he's about 27, but
yeah.
I wouldn't, if he's going to contribute right away on special teams, and you can see him being that 3rd or 4th corner off the bench right away, then I don't think it's a concern. If he was going to be more of a developmental guy, you really didn't see him starting at any point, then maybe you'd pass on him just because you're really just taking him for special teams at 25 years old. But the fact that you could see him starting in a year, I think it's worth the risk. I don't think the 25 is that big of a deal.
Yeah, 100%. And depending on where he falls, these teams could get great value out of him, right? And at 25 years old, he's probably going to be foaming at the mouth to get out there and play right away. But he's also a former track star, and I think that's worth noting.
Good one, yes.
Where he gets those abilities from. And that's probably the case with a lot of these dudes.
Mm-hmm.
But you really do got to like it. 6'4" and 200. If he can play at the athletic level in the NFL, that's a huge plus.
Right. One of the things we've seen with some of our corners before we've upgraded with the Giants, hesitates on the edge. So he gives up the edge a little bit. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. They need to work on is setting that edge as the corner. And in a Shane Bowen system, where he likes his corners to come up and make plays. So that's just one of the things that they noticed in the scouting report, is that he hesitates on the edge in the running game.
Right. And you can't do that. And again, that's something we've been struggling with on the outside, is trying to break up these screen routes. We get torched. So that's something that we're going to have to be able to do. We're going to get the top guys. They're all really good at it.
Yeah.
Not just, this is year over year. Both the top guys in this draft are really phenomenal at breaking those up.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to Maxwell Hairston. Anyone listening is going to be a very...
And real quick, Mike, did you have Zy Alexander?
Oh, I missed over him. Go ahead.
I want to talk about him because I'll tell you, he's very intriguing. Let me throw. All right, let's talk about his 6'2", 194. Good stats. Projected round 3, 4.56, 40, decent speed. But what you like about this guy, what jumps off the page right away, in 2,500 snaps, he has a missed tackle rate of 7.5%, which is off the charts.
That's really good. Because what's the average there? It's like, what I got to look.
You tell me for college. I don't even know.
College missed tackle rate. Let's figure that out. 15%.
Okay, man. So
I would imagine the variation is like when you like it's hard to be better than that. It's easier to be worse.
For sure. And look at where he plays, right? He's at LSU in the SEC. So man, the competition he has for only 7.5 percent missed tackle rate. Fantastic.
Well, think about who's got to practice against too. That's the one thing that's intriguing.
There you go.
You got to remember that factors into it. Yes, they do play against the scout team a lot of the time, and that's not necessarily the case. Especially when they're younger at the school, they got to get involved early with going against these top receivers. So, he's getting that's a huge plus.
Absolutely. Hey, he had to go against Malik Neighbors a couple years ago, right? So
and Brian Thompson.
Ryan Thompson.
Must have been some rough days, man, but it makes you stronger.
Yep. I tell you, when looking at the height on this guy, he reminds me of an old Seattle Seahawk type of corner, right? I mean, this is the kind of size you saw with Pete Carroll when he used to go with those corners that were big. 6'2", 194. Great length.
Yeah. Some sturdy dudes.
Natural instincts in zone. He baits well, so he's smart. Fantastic tackler we just mentioned. So right there, that jumps off the page. A guy that you're going to see maybe even special teams right off the bat again. But even when he gets in the game, you're going to see him he's not going to miss too many tackles. Ball skills, 13 interceptions in his career. He had 2 pick sixes too. So tracks the ball well, reads well, physical, tackles, block. Needs work and press. He's not really going to be a press guy, even though he's 6'2", 194. He's not really a strong press guy. He's more of a zone, matter of fact. He's not a guy they have projected in man, although he'd have to play man, but he's projected more of a zone cover 3. Only 13 snap, even though he has that a tackle rate of 7.5% at 2,500 snaps. He's only played 13 snaps in special teams in his college career. So not a lot of snaps in special teams, which this, once again, a guy that gets drafted maybe in the 3rd round is going to have to contribute. If he's on the depth chart, not starting, he's going to have to contribute in special teams. So another guy that would have to be able to do that. But the fact that he doesn't miss tackles is,
It's injury. See, and that's the unfortunate reality with this dude. But you know what? Maybe he's worth taking that flyer on because if he can recover, especially the ACL tear, that's tough.
Right.
But concussions, I don't care. I mean, he can recover from those, but he could be a phenomenal player.
Right. And maybe one of the reasons he didn't play a lot of special teams at LSU is because they couldn't afford to put him on special teams when you're going up against all these SEC receivers, and you couldn't, you had to give him a breather at some point.
It's probably going to start getting a little bit less common here with a lot of corners that we go over, right? Because I mean, it's just it's bruising. It's really bruising playing special teams.
Absolutely. So you see, as soon as these guys are starting to be projected in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, they're not the type of guys that have played a lot of special teams. You're seeing these special teamers in those projections 4th, 5th, 6th round, which they played a little bit more in college. So. But great tackler. That's what you take away here. Smart angles and he wraps up. He doesn't just throw shoulders. He wraps
he's
up.
a beast. He's a beast. The LSU guys are always some tough dudes.
Yeah. I always think of Corey Webster, right? We think of LSU back in the day.
Right.
And he had to rebound a little bit, and he turned out all right.
All right. So this one's weird. I have a conflict of interest, and I actually literally cannot talk about this guy. So, Chris, I'm going to hand it to you, and you can talk about him.
Oh, wow. All right. Okay.
I have not had to pull that card before, but
no
a
worries.
unique circumstance. I can't talk about.
Oh, okay. No worries. And don't forget Darian Porter. We'll get him next. We'll
get Porter. Yeah.
Okay. So Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky.
We went over Porter.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, we did. Remember Iowa State?
Oh, we did. Okay.
Yeah, so I did flip a little out of order here.
Oh, maybe I didn't do. Okay. We did him? Okay. Okay, so we have Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky, 6'1", 186, projected in round 3. Fast, 4'2", 840. I mean, you would think a guy that runs that fast would be better would excel in man. But from the scouting reports and watching him, he really excels in zone. He's got great spatial awareness, closing speed, great burst to the ball, change of direction, very fluid, flipping his hips, back pedals well, recognizes double moves, high points the ball, good ball skills, tracks the ball well, plays with swagger, and plays good in space, probably better than even man, even with that speed, just because he anticipates and just plays well in space. So he probably more of excels in a zone. Difficulty with the size, maybe at 186 pounds, could have some difficulty rerouting the bigger receivers. Gets overpowered a little bit with the bigger physical blockers at 186 pounds. Tackling's okay, needs improvement. But once again, the speed, and I didn't see if he returns kicks. I didn't see anything on that, but interesting that he's a 4.28 if he were able to return punts or kicks, because man, that's some great speed. 4.28, which I guess that was clocked at the combine. Can you mention that, Mike? Was that the top?
That is official. That is his time. I could say that. That's just a fact. I will say this too, and this is just based on reports, but the big thing is, I mean, he went from potentially a third round prospect to, it wouldn't be that surprising if he was actually taken in the later part of the first, because his senior day performance was phenomenal.
Right.
From what people said, these are not my own views.
Yeah, we heard it from those scouts, and you're right, Mike. We did Darian Porter. You know, it all blends together after a while.
Because there's Darian Porter and Dorian
right.
Strong.
Dorian Strong, right. But the 5 block kicks on special teams was unbelievable. Yeah.
Yes. No, 100%. 100%. I was hoping I wasn't losing my mind.
No, it was me, man. It was me. 2 Dorians.
I very interesting one to check out. I would recommend for everybody to talk about Hairston. Just watch his clips. Watch the Senior Bowl. But that's literally all I can really say.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Azari Thomas out of Florida State. Now, here's a team that really underperformed last year. I mean, it was absolutely insane for them to drop off as hard as they did. But here's a bright spot on the team, because this dude was a phenomenal player. Good length, good twitch, good athleticism. He also mirrors well, and he has a mean streak against the run. I really like this dude. Stat line's not really that impressive. Like, you're not going to look at the stats and be like, oh, that's kind of impressive. But I think this dude is actually a phenomenal player.
Yeah, and Mike, do you agree with the fact they're looking at round 2? You see him at that draft projection, round 2?
He's going to go in round 2. I wouldn't right now. Never mind. I was going to say something. I can't say it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I can't. I know. It's weird.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to keep going with Thomas?
Keep going. I don't have any reason I can't talk about Thomas.
Okay. So, like you just said, Mike, a couple of the points, other things to touch upon. Great length, athletic at 6'2", recognizes routes, closing speed, very good in press coverage, fluid for his size at 6'2", uses the outside boundary just like one of the other corners to reroute receivers. So he's smart. He's played special teams with all units, coverage units, return units. He'll be a gunner, they believe, from day one. So you know what? This is another guy that if he's not starting right away after being drafted in round 2 and they're going to develop him a little bit, he'll contribute right away on special teams. Although he's good in press, he's a little inconsistent. So he looks great sometimes, and other times he doesn't look great. So a little inconsistent there. Tackling's also a little inconsistent, especially when he plays in space. So in space, he arm tackles. Seems like he kind of flails his arms and throws himself rather than wrapping up. But we see that quite a bit. He can be grabby when beaten vertically downfield. Over pursues sometimes, can be a little bit too aggressive. Has his eyes on the quarterback a little too much sometimes. That's another negative they have on him. Needs to not be so peeking in at the quarterback as much.
Okay.
But they foresee him more of a zone corner than a man. That's what the projection is on him. Is more in a cover three zone, board in a zone. They could play man, but he excels a little bit better in zone.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, like when I watch the tape, that's pretty evident. Trey Amos. So this is a dude. I think very highly of this guy. I just like how nasty he is and physical. And there's been a lot of those cornerbacks on this list. We're talking about a dude that's probably going to go sometime in the second round, but wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the first. Recovery speed and handsiness is a bit of an issue, and he does get fooled a little bit on particular routes. But overall, he's very tough. He's great against the run, and he can do both zone and press very well. What do you got on him?
He's your prototypical outside boundary corner. You're not going to see him in a slot. He's great in press man, physical, like you had mentioned, and he could almost be too aggressive at times, but plays the ball well with contested catches at 6'1". Processes the route combinations, rarely fooled, which I think at the next level, NFL level, is, it's all upstairs a lot of times, because the physical ability with a lot of these guys is close, but it's, how fast can they process and recognize the concept or the scheme. And this seems to come natural to him. So I think at the next level, he's going to ramp up. It seems pretty quick, just because he's got it between the ears and he understands the concepts. But yeah, more of a man, physical outside corner. So I'll tell you what, anybody who gets him, man, in the second, or if we God forbid he fell to the third round, that's a steal. This is a guy that'll probably start right away.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, like a later round pick team, this is where we start getting a little worried that he goes to the Eagles.
Yeah, but you know what, Mike? We always see these corners drop, right? For whatever reason, we see corners.
It happens.
There's a run on them later. Like you get those first couple, like you're going to talk about Hunter or Johnson, but then you see those second round projections sometimes fall to the third or fourth. I mean, we've seen that even with
oh yeah,
a couple of the giant ones, and they didn't pan out, but guys fall at the cornerback position. So yeah, man, this could be a guy that maybe, if he falls to the third, boy, what a steal.
Yeah. No, 100%. Another guy who's a very good player. And like, again, all these dudes are dudes that I would expect at this point to start right away. And none other than Benjamin Morrison is the exact same bracket. His anticipation and his angles are very good, and that's very critical. He's a smart guy, classic Notre Dame type player. Very versatile. He can play outside or in the slot, which is good that he has the dynamic ability. And he doesn't take the only thing is, though, he doesn't take chances. And he's had hip injuries as of late. So that's going to be the biggest concern. But he would be higher on the list if it wasn't for those.
And I think, Mike, did he have surgery?
He did. He had to have hip surgery.
Is that at the end of 24, 23? Did he have it? No, because he played the rest of the season. I mean, he played, was it 23 he had surgery?
23.
23.
What do you got on him, though?
Pretty much, just what you mentioned. Great technique, fluid in the hips, plays very well in leverage, very exceptional in press, quick feet.
I'm out. I forgot what year it is. He got hurt in 2024. I was thinking last year was 2023.
Right.
Sorry.
But
I should be adjusted at this point. It's April. Like, you kind of like have that lag time with the year.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yep. No. Tracks the ball. They noted he tracks the ball like a receiver. So even on his interceptions, he looks like a receiver, and we've seen that on tape. Baits the quarterback well in zone, strong tackler, comes at you downhill, recognizes routes well. There's always, nobody's perfect. Jumps routes too aggressive sometimes at times. Sometimes there's a little difficulty at shedding blocks at 190 pounds, but and then the hip surgery that was mentioned. So
the hip injury. So it happened last year, so that really devastated his stock. But like, make no mistake, I mean, it's something that you can recover from. He's a phenomenal player, but look, this is the one big issue with cornerback position as a whole. This is a really hard position to go out there day one and ball out. I actually think it's the hardest in the league.
I agree with you, Mike, and that's been stated by NFL people that cornerback is probably besides, if you put quarterback aside, cornerback might be the most difficult to transition from college to the pro game. And we've seen it with the giant corners, the drafts, right? From guys like Deontay Baker and Holmes. Remember Halsey out of Virginia Tech? Yeah, and we've seen guys just flame out, man. So yeah, I agreed.
Yeah, it's just it's a hard. I mean, the one that's why I was so surprised with that with the cornerback the Eagles got last year from Toledo, because it's like the dude never went against ball out level receivers in college, and somehow he adjusted just fine. It's like, man, Howie Roseman's really working that devil magic.
Yeah, and the concepts in the scheme that their defensive coaches and offensive coaches, I don't know if they keep it so like matter of fact and so like easy, like they can not easy, but they can comprehend it easier. But the concepts, it just seems like wherever they plug in at that in Philly, they work out, right?
I know it works out perfectly
amazing.
fine. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, really is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So moving on to Siobhan Rebel. So he went a smaller school guy, ECU. After going over the Toledo dude last year, I will never discount a person's school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes me question things sometimes, like how long will it take him to adjust. But let's just go over exactly what he's good at. Athleticism is very, very good. Very smooth transition, the hips, everything like that. It's almost surprising he didn't go to another school. He also was 6'3" and 193 for that size. He's incredibly athletic, and that's what scouts are going to love about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a smart player, but his ACL injury hindered him, and that's going to be his biggest issue, similar to Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah, in 2024, he did tear it early on, so it gives him time to heal up. Now it's going to be interesting on his 30 visits with the medicals and to see how teams feel about him. We won't hear about that, right off the bat. But and you tell me, Mike, before the ACL, he was potentially a top 15 pick.
Yeah, he was. He was projected to be one of those top guys. ACL tears are devastating for players. I mean, senior year, especially if you're a cornerback. Will Johnson was still traditionally projected as like the number one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Debated, of course, with Travis Hunter, however scouts viewed him. But, Siobhan Rebel is right up there, and unfortunately the injuries collapsed it.
Yeah, do you agree, Mike, that despite missing 2024 or most of it, he'll be a round 2, or do you think he falls?
I only suspect that he goes in round 1 if somebody watches what he can do or does he would have to do a physical and do all the things that a cornerback would normally do, like in combine in a private setting, a workout setting, and then the teams are going to have to like evaluate from there if it's worth the risk. I only see like teams that are already good taking that risk, like the Browns, and that's just the thing. Like if nobody takes him in the first round, he's going to fall even further into the second round because teams like the Browns wouldn't take him.
Do you think he can fall to like the 4th round after an ACL? Because
I would imagine third round is probably where he's going to go. I just suspect that a team that might already be on like their 4th pick might be like, look, we get this guy playing what he was like in college. He's going to ball out. I just don't see him going past 4, knowing what he can do.
Yeah, and I haven't followed his medical, but if he tore his ACL and had surgery back in September, I mean, this is a guy that may not even be ready for OTAs.
And that's just the issue, yeah.
And he might be just maybe the end of training camp.
Done for that whole year.
Yeah.
Right. But, again, I mean, it's a shame for this kid. You really feel for the dude in this situation.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Mike. If you're the Giants and the debate is still out on Deonte Banks, and by all accounts, you're hoping he rebounds this year. You got a Debo on the other end. If he were to fall if he falls to the 4th round, knowing that you have a talent like this coming off an ACL, and you don't have to rush him out, but as an insurance policy, if Deonte Banks doesn't work out, and this is a guy that you could possibly slide in 26, would you think about taking him in the 4th round if he were to fall?
100%. This is who you want to take in the 4th round. It's these types of players, like the injury concern, right? Obviously, there's no guarantees. If this guy falls to the 4th, though, you got to take him just knowing what he can do if he's healthy.
Yeah. Especially, obviously, we talk about Deonte Banks, and he'll be going into his 3rd year next year. And if he has another down year, he may lose his job, right? I mean, it's possible.
Right. I fully suspect that likely will be the case.
Right. And I think the biggest thing with Deonte, right, Mike, I think you agree. It's the play is one thing, but it's the dogging it and when he gave up on plays. That was the stuff that really set Giants fans crazy.
Yeah, it pisses everybody off. Like, I mean, I can't stand for laziness. I don't care what the system is or the disagreements you're having. You got to go out there and play, man.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. The fans are paying too much money for that crap.
Right.
All right. Well, moving on from him, it'd be very curious to see how this guy plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Jahdae Barron, now we're getting to the point where it's like, man, this dude this dude's pretty nasty. And here's the one thing I really like about him: his ball breakup skills. Have you ever watched it? Not just getting to the ball, but actually like getting in front, like getting his hands involved when he's behind the wide receivers and breaking up the pass. He is probably one of the best prospects I've ever seen do it.
Tracks the deep ball well, right, Mike? I mean, that's one of the things they
That's
have listed. Yeah.
100%. But there's plenty of other things about him. So, like, what about you, man? What do you think?
Well, from what I saw and some of the notes I have, obviously projected round one, great speed, 4.39 in the 40, 5'11", 200 pounds. Between the ears, processes the routes and concepts fast. Diagnosis plays well. Physical tackler. Quick on the underneath route. So when he's backpedaling or needs to drive on the those underneath routes, he explodes. Exceptional in zone well. So he could play a little, he could play both. I mean, that's why he's going to round one, right? He's good in space, but he's also, excels in man. He baits well. And we're talking about the interception. So he baits the quarterback well in zone, especially. Physical impress man. Fantastic ball skills. Tracks the deep ball. They see him, if he's not starting right away, he'll be a gunner, on special teams. So, depending where he lands, right? Maybe he does start, but they could see him as a gunner as well, as because of his speed at 4.39.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Recovery speed could be a little bit better on the deep ball routes, it says. Disengaging off blocks with the bigger receivers. Can be grabby sometimes at the top of routes, but we see that with a lot of corners. I mean, that seems to be common.
Yeah, he's a high risk. I mean, he takes risk,
Yeah. Sometimes too aggressive, just what you said, exactly. So sometimes he could be too aggressive and susceptible to misdirection when he's too aggressive. But these are all things that, are common and could be worked on. It's more, sounds like he just has to be a little more in control, to be honest, right?
Yep.
Just got to slow it down a little bit.
That's it. All right, now we're down to the home run stretch because we're debating between two very, very elite cornerbacks. Will Johnson had an injury this past year too, his turf toe. So that's why his stock, he was projected as probably we talk about the top players in the draft. I think there's 6. I think it's him. I think it's Hunter. I think it's Shadur, Cam Ward, Mason Graham, and Carter. I think those are the top 6 dudes. He is a really good shutdown cornerback. And he's also really good in the zone. He's a very smart player. He played in both Jesse Minter's defensive system as well as Wink Martindale's system, which were very much different. He is a top prospect in the draft. And I know he's dealing with an injury, but I don't think that's going to affect him, hopefully, too much because teams would be stupid to pass on him out of concern for that injury. He is a very good cornerback, perhaps one of the best that I've ever discussed over on this show. What are your thoughts on him?
From the notes in watching him, he has that size, speed, fluid with the hips. They say
he's thick. He's a thick dude for cornerback.
For a corner. And they say his football IQ is off the charts. He looks like, to me, is going to be like a future captain. He would have gotten to Michigan academically. Oh, yeah. Okay. They say nasty competitive streak, ball skills, fantastic. He's patient in man coverage, doesn't get sold out on the stop and goes and the quick routes. He uses his techniques and relies on his technique and trusts his recovery speed. Good awareness with the boundary, like some of the other corners we talked about, using that boundary as an extra defender. Mike, if you had to compare him to a past or present corner, who would you compare him to, the likes of?
He doesn't really remind me of Stingley. I think Revis.
Wow.
I think that, his fundamentals and everything about his play looks the most like Revis. Standard, not crazy like sideways speed, anything like that, but just the pure, you're going to have a real tough day trying to get a ball over this dude. What about you? Who do you compare him to?
What his height? Do you see him as he's 6'2", 190? Do you Sauce Gardner? What's his? Is he similar? 6'2"? What is Sauce Gardner's frame?
6'3".
I see a little Sauce Gardner in him, but now maybe I'm wrong. Going back to college, maybe not right now I feel like he has better ball skills than Sauce Gardner, but in
Yeah, I mean, if
terms
we're
of his
talking about
shutdown
height, yeah, Will
ability,
Johnson's not really actually like Revis in those regards. But yeah, Sauce is Sauce. I'd say Sauce is a fair comparison. I think Sauce is a little bit more athletic, though.
okay. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he hasn't had a ton of turnovers. They're staying away from him, but I don't know. I expected more from Sauce, right? In terms of the past year, I feel like a little bit of a letdown with Gardner the past year. So,
Right.
but yeah, he strikes me maybe as a little bit of a Sauce Gardner.
That wouldn't be a
But
bad thing for any of these
yeah,
teams. I mean, I really think he's a phenomenal player, but his speed did blow me away, though.
yeah,
I didn't think that Will Johnson, because he doesn't look like he plays that fast because of the shiftiness, but I mean, he had a 4.3 something 40. That's
4.39 it has. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, a lot of sub 4.4s this year.
Yeah, really. I haven't. He doesn't return. I'm not that you're going to want to return any kicks, but did he do any return work at Michigan?
No return.
they
Work.
wouldn't
He's
do
not
that.
he wasn't really that kind of guy. And again, the shiftiness just wasn't really quite there for it.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm saying his shiftiness as if it's a problem. It's not. It's just not like the one thing you're like, damn, look at that. It's just he's just a pure menacing shutdown.
Yeah. Where do you think he falls? I mean, now we're talking round one, might be the first 12 picks. Do you think he lands somewhere before 15?
I don't think he's going to go as far as 15. I just feel like a team like the Saints will get him. Like, I think he's 12 at worst.
Okay.
12 at worst. And truly, like, man, if we already had a quarterback, I'd be stoked if we got him.
Yeah.
But yeah. So look, we got one more dude to go over, and we got a lot to talk about with him, right?
Yep.
Travis
That's all you, man. I know you did your homework on him, man. You've been watching him, so please, you take it away.
Travis excels at everything, and even though, I mean, wide receiver wise, he was always out there. It's like cornerback. He seems to just love playing cornerback, and it was really fun to watch all the clips and all the tape and all of what makes him special, right? Obviously, he can do both. The question always is, can he do both? Elite. But he checks the boxes for everything that you look for in a cornerback. It's that twitchiness, the fluidness, how good he is at staying on receivers, and he's got the incredible athletic ability where like the ball's in the air and you readjust where he is to try to get the ball too, but also being in a good position to make the tackle if he's not going to get the ball, right? So he just has that high level IQ play. The only concern that he's going to have here, and is the wiry frame. And of course, is is he going to play more receiver or cornerback? Do you want to add anything on him? Because we're just going to I'm going to go right to it.
Go right to it. I think you hit it off.
Okay.
Yeah. No, go right ahead.
We did the wide receiver show, and the question is like, would he be the best wide receiver in the draft? Yeah, I'd say so. He's the best wide receiver. I think he's actually far better than the next guy, McMillan. Mm-hmm. Would he be the best cornerback in the draft? I would say it's closer. Yes, especially with Will Johnson's toe or foot injury. He's probably the better in terms of shiftiness, but I don't think the gap between him and Will Johnson's that significant. But I tell you what, you get him in the draft, which the Giants are favored right now to, teams are going to be very fortunate to have him. And he's going to be a great cornerback or wide receiver. I think overall he's a terrific player.
And Mike, now that we're less than a month away, what do you project him as an impact as a receiver? Do you feel like whoever takes him is going to lean more on the receiving end and just have some packages for him on defense, whether it's the Giants or somebody else? Do you feel like he's going to be a receiver at this point, primarily?
That might depend on his need, and I struggle with it too, right? Because it's like, the thing is, the Giants already have a wide receiver, but like, and they're assessing right now. And by the way, Giants are favored to take him, but they're assessing right now what he's better at. Is he better at the wide receiver? Is he going to be a better fit for corner? Like, look, I mean, we already have Malik. So if he's going to be an elite cornerback, not just a good one, like an elite one, I feel like you got to put him there.
Really? So
I think so.
Yeah.
And then some packages of wide receiver. I think that makes more sense.
Okay. See, I'm thinking I might want to play him at receiver right off the bat and open things up for the other guys, whether it's Neighbors or Slayton. And then you can ease Hunter in on situational 4-minute offense, 2-minute offense when you want to put him in there, end the game, Hail Mary. I just feel like the impact may come a little bit faster at the receiver position, only because with the Debo and Banks, I probably want to run those guys. Doesn't mean next year, if things don't work out with Banks, you can't transition him maybe a little bit more on the, at the cornerback position. And this is why I don't trust the Giants either, Mike, because, I mean, we've seen them screw things up. They didn't even know how to work Isaiah Simmons. Now, Isaiah Simmons didn't work out with the Cardinals either, but I don't know if I trust the Giants coaching staff to utilize him the right way if they're going to work him in the sub packages with defense and in 2-minute. So even if he were to play corner, I don't know if I trust him, even the Giants utilizing him in the right way. And that's the problem I have with the Giants.
Look, I totally agree with you.
Best
and
of his
this is
ability.
the biggest concern that I almost have with the dude is like, he can do it all, but how are the Giants going to do it? And I feel like we waste it, blow it, and it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, and then the regime changes next year, and then you have a whole nother regime coming, and then they want to figure out what they want to do with him. So could you imagine this, Mike? The Giants want him as a receiver. The new regime comes in, and they don't want Banks. They've had it with Banks, and they say, you know what? We want to switch you back to corner. You're a corner. So now everything changes. Right.
Then he's got to adjust.
So that's the one thing that hasn't been discussed. This regime may want them at one specific role, but that's not to say next year, if the Giants go 5-12, everybody gets cleared out, and the new group comes in and says, we want him. We want him corner, or we want him at receiver.
Right.
So this is really going to be interesting. I mean, the draft can't come soon enough, because I think we've all had enough of the guessing games at this point.
Oh, right? 100%.
Every year we say it at this point. As you get into that first week of April, it's like, enough already. Let's just do it.
But here's the thing. I mean, if he is a cornerback, then like, is that really worth it for the Giants right now? I don't know. I mean, like, part of me is more of like, and I guess you got to just get the best player available. But whether he is a cornerback or a wide receiver, I guess my problem with him is like I lean more towards Carter of the non-quarterbacks, because I want a pass rusher. Yeah. You know, I want somebody that's elite again in the quarterback. And I don't know, like a quarterback I would take. We already have wide receiver, but I don't know. Like I just I share your concerns. I really do.
And how about this, Mike? Suppose Banks has a shitty first half of the season, right? We're at week 7 and he's playing like garbage. And now you have Hunter, who's primarily been on offense. Now you're starting to sub him in even more on defense. So now you're doing a little switch. You're having him taking over for Banks, and now you're scaling him back on offense, and now Slayton's playing more. But that's something to keep an eye on, because if they do, they do take Hunter, it doesn't mean that things are going to work out 100% with Banks. I mean, Banks,
Banks could be 2 years deep. He's probably going to be a bust.
Yeah.
He sucks. But look, Hunter, I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete and a phenomenal player overall. Yeah. So as long as the Giants use him appropriate, I think what makes the most sense is defense first and then play packages on wide receiver, because I think it's easier to do that.
I agree with you. Yeah, I like that.
And, imagine like in the rare times where we put him out there with Malik at wide receiver, like that's going to be phenomenal. But if it's true natural positions, cornerback, or he can play cornerback elite or wide receiver elite, then put him at corner. It's really tough to find those guys.
Absolutely. Listen, 2-minute offense on the end of the half, end of the game, and then a red zone, right? Red zone threat. I mean, he can be utilized. I would think snaps, instead of looking at how many plays here, we just got to look at the total snaps. How many snaps total in a game do you want to play him? And that's really what it's going to come down to. However you manage the snaps, whether it's offense, defense, how many snaps is the limit that you want to play him, and then you manage it that way.
Right, because you can't truly start him both ways.
Right, but you could manage the snaps. So let's say you said 110 snaps a game. Now you figure it out how you want to work that.
Right. I think somebody said like, oh, maybe you do a little bit of half and half at both. It's like, no. He's got to have one solidified starting role, and then the sometimes role. I just think it's easier to sometimes be a wide receiver for this dude than sometimes be a cornerback.
That's it.
It takes a lot of work to be that good at corner.
I mean, especially at corner, the stop and go and a different, and even at receiver. I mean, that's why we look at the the wear and tear on running backs. So it'd be wear and tear on him with
Right. Hey, just one point that was brought up, Crypto, and this is, I think you left the room, but we kind of talked about this. Level of competition with cornerbacks. That used to be a huge concern with me, but seeing how Quinion Mitchell's doing it with the Eagles, I'm a little bit less concerned. Like if Travis Hunter's like truly like an elite cornerback and he can play, then that's all good. Just note that Will Johnson was hurt for the last 6 games of the Michigan year, and really like the Big Ten wide receivers aren't really particularly good. The Big 12 is kind of a faster conference, and he missed the Ohio State game, so it's a little bit tough to get a gauge on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Giants fans, look, thank you all for coming through. Chris, we'll be doing our draft show at the end of the month. I am looking forward to it.
Same
Until
here,
then, thank you for coming through, Chris. Everybody, take care. Peace.
Thanks, guys.